Welcome to today's webinar on the SmartAgriHubs Regional Cluster Ireland and UK, the updates on the open calls and the tools offered by the SmartAgriHubs project. The webinar today will run from 3 p.m. to 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Should you have any questions, all attendees are muted, but you can ask a question via the chat function in your dashboard. Please type who the question is for and your text. If there is a question that you would like to ask throughout the event, please do come forward and ask the question. We won't be too strict today. All of the questions will be answered at the end of the event at 2:40, and should we run out of time, we'll respond directly to you as a participant after the webinar. We're also recording today's GoToWebinar session, and we will be sharing this on the SmartAgriHubs portal with all of the presentations to all of the attendees after the event. We will introduce each of the presenters in advance of their presentations. The agenda is as follows. Margot, you might go to slide number 2, please. And Davy, I'll let you take the lead on the agenda.
Hello, everybody. I'm Evera Joviti, Regional Cluster Co-Lead and Head of Social and Policy at Innovation for Agriculture UK-based organization. We are going to hear today from Harald on prepare open call guidance and advice offered to potential proposers. Then we are going to hear from Manuel and Cynthia on Agricultural Technology Navigator, and we are going to use an online demo for this. And finally, from Caroline, we are going to discuss on the new Digital Innovation Hubs Learning and Exchange Program experience from the first wave and sharing examples with the audience. Back to you, Hazel.
Thank you. I should have actually stated at the beginning of the event, and thank you, Evie, for doing so. My name is Hazel Peaboy, and I work for the Wood Institute here in Ireland. And Davy and I work very closely together on the Regional Cluster Ireland and the UK. So first of all, I'd like to present Harald. He's a senior researcher at ATB, Institute for Applied Systems Technology. Since 1998, he's been working as scientific staff member at ATB in consultancy and research projects. He's involved in national research activities in several international research programs since the 4th ECFRP, undertaking the role as a local project manager and project coordinator of international research projects, researching topics related to digital innovation, IoT, mobile and collaborative work within different business domains. In the IOF 2020 large-scale project, he was managing the work package on IoT technology reuse. And in the SmartAgriHubs project, he takes care of the open calls, supporting expansion of digital innovations for the agri-food sector, managing cascade funding for startups and SMEs, as well as for research and innovation initiatives. Harald, please.
Hazel, thank you very much for this very long introduction about my person. Wow, what I did all in the last year, so it's impressive. It impresses me, so don't worry. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I would like to give some answers based on questions. However, I think what is most important also in this webinar that if you have questions now, they shall come first. Therefore, please use also the webinar tool. Also, our colleagues will look at the questions, and then we will also straightforward jump also to your questions. However, we also prepared some, let's say, very common or commonly asked questions, which I think is very good to give a short answer on. I think very short and clear answers, because we are talking now about the prepare open call specifically. You know, I think you had already a look at that call. If you're interested to submit a proposal, it's about 70 to 100% funding. You can ask for max 20,000 euro funding. It's on a lump sum basis, and up to, in the moment, up to 60 projects concerning the overall budget available could be funded. And we are funding based on results. This means it's not about some timesheets or something. If you deliver the results, also then the funding is released accordingly into installments, more or less. Therefore, concerning questions, I just try to pick out some questions also from the forum, the SmartAgriHubs forum. Please also, if after this event, you can also go to the SmartAgriHubs forum, put there your question, and then we are also answering it there in the forum, and you can also have a look at the answered questions already. So therefore, often also the question is how many funded contractors are possible funded contracts are possible per organization. There we said, well, Digital Innovation Hub could receive funding in maximum of 3 different subgrants, because we said, well, we should not, let's say, over intensify it per organization. Therefore, we said 3. However, also how many innovation experiments can be supported, because sometimes there's this, I have the impression, this understanding that per, for instance, expand or also prepare open call proposal, you can only support 1 innovation experiment. Of course not. If you think, it also depends on your strategy as a digital innovation hub. If you think it's good to have large innovation experiments, possibly then you have 1, 2, 3, I don't know. If you think it's way better in your region to support a lot of innovation experiments, possibly small innovation experiments, but therefore quite a number, like if you want to support dozens or 100 farmers, well, why not to do 100 innovation experiments on a small scale? But that's a completely different strategy, and therefore I think this definitely depends on your strategy. Therefore, the open calls give you their full flexibility and freedom. Then who can receive funding in the scope of the SmartAgriHubs open call? Well, simple answer, digital innovation hubs, which are not yet full members or beneficiary of the SmartAgriHubs consortium, because, well, we are not giving money to ourselves in the project. It's for new parties which would like to join this effort. Then also, when is a digital innovation hub eligible? This also a little bit relates to what is a digital innovation hub. And what we are saying here in SmartAgriHubs, that's our definition for our open calls, not a general one, just for our open calls. We are saying more or less any organization that is deciding to become, or which is anyway already operating a digital innovation hub and registered in our registers in our network, they are eligible. Therefore, we also want to highlight digital innovation hub is a role. So there are different ways how to organize a digital innovation hub. There's not one, let's say, truth. And especially this is also something we want to learn in SmartAgriHubs. What are the best approaches for digital innovation hubs? What works, what not, and also to validate that. And therefore, we are not asking for an external certification for being able to submit a proposal. So, however, for restart and expand proposals, we are asking you to make a self-assessment, but that's also, I think it's also good exercise. You can do it via our website, and that's we're also asking you to put this in your proposal that's generated also via our website, and in the call you will get more information on that. What is the funding rate? Very simple, 70 or 100%. So 100% for non-profit organizations, 70% for all the others. Which countries are eligible? We also had this discussion a little bit earlier. More or less, it's according, because SmartAgriHubs is funded in the scope of the Horizon 2020 RTD program. And therefore, all member states, all associated countries, and additional international eligible countries. So there are some documents from the European Commission where you have all the list of, especially also developing countries, would be possibly eligible for submitting a proposal. However, of course, in SmartAgriHubs, you should follow the ideas of SmartAgriHubs, and therefore we are following a pan-European strategy in realizing the network of digital innovation hub and competence centers. Therefore, of course, if also partners from outside Europe, for instance, are proposing a proposal, it shall also have to do something with a pan-European strategy. I think this piece have in your mind. How's the compatibility with other sources of funding? We're not excluding any sources. So if you are, let's say, getting funded for some part of the work by another source, do whatever you like. There's only one rule, a very simple rule. Please do not do double funding of the same work. I think that's very clear, normal, natural. the same work shall not be funded double, period. That's it. Then also how to prepare a proposal in Prepare. We think that's a very straightforward approach. We are asking you to prepare 2 pages, and it's here that you're preparing the realization of innovation experiments. Therefore, you shall really help the evaluators to understand on those 2 pages, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to do? At the same time, and this is also our experience from the past, it's really helpful also for evaluators if you're adding a figure. We said, well, it's optional, but also my impression was that evaluators way more easily understand your approach, what you are doing, what you are targeting at in terms of components, timing, and so on, if you're adding a figure. Also, of course, shortly on the budget, milestones and work steps. That's not rocket science. That's more or less materializing a little bit your planning. And also 1 page presenting your involved Digital Innovation Hub team, that also evaluators get an idea of what is this kind of Digital Innovation Hub. And for last but not least, we are asking you to submit the proposals via the proposal submission system, and more or less the kernel element, you're just putting those elements in a PDF, uploaded there, some administrative information, that's it. And then we were every now and then asked, is subcontracting possible? Well, that's you could discuss hours about subcontracting and European projects, I would say. However, here is like the classical thing is if you need some room, if you need some, let's say, whatever, that is possible up to 10% of the total funding. So, but well, I think you shall be a little bit careful on that. However, as I said before, main reimbursement principle is here as a lump sum basis. Therefore, we are specifically asking about the results and not about timesheets or something like this of individuals. How to calculate the budget of innovation experiments. And that's also, this was every now and then a question also when you're looking at the other calls. That's also when you are targeting at that. For us, it's also very interesting to get an idea what is the Digital Innovation Hub doing, what are innovation experiments doing. So, and this is also for us interesting to learn about this key performance indicator. And if we're talking about costs, efforts, in-kind contribution, I think this is also when you are explaining what you are doing. We're not just talking about money. And I think it's also very interesting for evaluators to learn to which degree also additional effort is mobilized and in-kind contribution are provided by other parties. So I think these are also quite some, let's say, indicators to tell what you want to achieve. Therefore, I also put, as it was also said in the beginning, we're also sharing the presentation. I have some links, and definitely if you have further questions, either now or you will also use the forum for a one-to-one answering questions. So Margot, are there any questions?
Not at the moment. There is no question in the chat.
Okay, then thank you very much for your attention, and possibly also when you're reading the documents, then there might come one or the other question up. Then I really invite you to contact us via the forum. That's the easiest way. Of course, if there are very, let's say, how to say it, very confidential questions, you might also contact us either via Evie or Hazel, definitely, or even they can answer questions to you, definitely. And but also then as a team, we will also make it possible to answer your question. So I'm very confident about that. And however, I think it's also nice to have the forum, because then we're also sharing some topics with the community that also others can, let's say, follow those questions and get further information.
Harald, thank you very, very much. Also,
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, just to let everybody know that the presentations we'll be sharing, you'll have Harald's email address as well. But of course, if you want to contact myself and Evie, it's no problem at all. Harald, very good, comprehensive presentation. Thank you very, very much. If anybody has any pressing questions, please, you can ask them now, or again, as Margot quite rightly said, you can pop them into the chat and we can address them at the end of the presentation. So now thank you, Harald. So now we'll move on to the SmartAgriHubs Agricultural Technology Navigator, the update and the online demo. So Cynthia works at the University of Almería in Spain. She is the chair of the COEXFAL, I think I've that pronounced correctly, UAL in horticulture, cooperative studies and the sustainable development, which is part of the Department of Economics and Business. She is the work package lead for SmartAgriHubs and Competency Centres, and in addition to various EU projects on digitisation and sustainability. Following Cynthia, Manuel will give a live demo, and he is the Professor of Systems and Systems Engineering and Automatic Control at the University of Almería in Spain as well, and he's the head of the research group Automatic Control Robotics and Mechatronics, which focuses on the control applications of agriculture, biotechnology and solar energy. Cynthia, I'll hand over to you, please.
Cynthia, you are muted.
I think you're muted, Cynthia. No, she's not. No.
There we are. There we are. Yeah. Okay, it wouldn't unmute for me for some reason. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. So Manuel and I are working on SmartAgriHubs in the Competence Centres. Okay. And Competence Centres, just to give you a little bit of background, they form a very important part of the Digital Innovation Hubs. And we've built some tools and in the project, and we want to invite the Competence Centres to be part of this sort of digital ecosystem. All right. So let me talk a little bit about what Competence Centres are, what they do, and why that would be interesting for you as a Competence Centre. And remember, Competence Centre is also a role, like a Digital Innovation Hub. Why it might be interesting for you to join this innovation portal and upload some digital technologies and therefore be found. Okay, so the Competence Centres, they provide, let's get this really straight here for this project. The Competence Centres provide the digital technologies infrastructure of the Digital Innovation Hub. Okay, so the Digital Innovation Hub is sort of like this one-stop shop, but the actual digital technology infrastructure is provided by the Competence Centres. All right, so they offer advanced technical expertise, access to the latest knowledge and information, access to test facilities, which is very important for agricultural actors to make sure that things actually work, labs, pilot, experimental facilities, and other technological and scientific infrastructure. All right. Just to clarify as well, Competence Centres are dealing sort of with the cutting edge. They're not dealing with products that are already in the market. All right, so they're not doing a market analysis. They're not doing, you know, the best technologies on Amazon Prime sort of thing. All right, they're dealing with these digital technologies that are necessary to move innovation forward. So if you're a Competence Centre, you might be a university, you might be an applied research and technology organization, you might be a laboratory or a demonstration farm, you might be an entity, let's say even a commercial entity or company, but you have important research and development labs. All right, so I won't belabor this, but there's a link in this slide that talks about the requisites. Like, what is a Competence Centre? So you can click on that link and you'll go to the website, and it describes quite well what exactly we mean by the role of a Competence Centre. All right, so even though we have entities listed there, the actual work of doing Competence Centre work is a role that you would take. All right, it's a little bit confusing sometimes when we talk about the role of a Digital Innovation Hub and the role of the Competence Centre, but basically it means what work are you contributing and doing at any given moment, and that defines what you are. You might be a Competence Centre, that's also a Digital Innovation Hub. and that's fine. Okay, so now we know what we are. Now let's talk about why you would bother to register in the innovation portal in the SmartAgriHubs, and why you would bother doing the work of registering on the ATN. Okay, well, first of all, visibility, right? So as soon as you register on the website, you're immediately visible as that little dot. You know, depending on where you are, people can find you, they can put their mouse over you and get a sense of who you are and click on you. But that only gives some information, all right? So when the search function is activated, they can find you, but if you actually have put in information on the Agricultural Technology Navigator, they can find out even more information about you, which is your competencies and systems, all right? So we want to make not only the Competence Center visible, but what you actually do. What are sort of your flagship or showcase technologies or systems that you want to put out there for hubs to use and their end users, right? Participation, well, you sort of join this, as they say, digital ecosystem. So you keep up with news, related projects, open calls, and not just open calls for SmartAgriHubs, because there are other sister and brother type projects where there are other open calls. And it might be in agri, but it might be in robotics, or it might be in something that could be related. So it keeps you up to date on the initiatives and the opportunities for funding. The Competence Centers can also benefit from the network that the digital innovation hubs have, and not just agri ones, okay? So in this project, we have digital innovation hubs that are agri hubs, but they're also connected to other hubs or networks of hubs where we can have access to technologies that might have cross applications. And it's really important to understand that digital innovation hubs cannot properly function without having good CCs. Right? So the CCs are fundamental here. If you don't have the CCs in the hub, you have a lot of services, but you don't have a core, right? So it's a question, you know, one of these situations where the hub and the CC, the whole becomes greater than the parts. Another part that's interesting here is we have something called the white spot analysis. So what do we need in technologies that's not yet addressed? And can we find competence centers who can move in and fill that gap? All right. So it's also about, you know, you might be a competence center that's doing some really interesting work, and you can have an opportunity to sort of move in with the technologies or research that you're doing and fill a gap that you perhaps hadn't thought of before. All right. So I want to explain to you very quickly about the Agricultural Technology Navigator, why we built this, what it functions, what it does. And then Manuel will go online and show you how to do it. The idea is that we wanted to make sort of a system that was easy to register what competence centers did, and we wanted to follow the supply chain. So we broke it up into first, of course, sectors. So are you in, or types, are you doing software? Are you doing equipment, for example? And then where are you in the supply chain? Are you fruits, vegetables, animal production, novel foods, etc.? And then, you know, are you in marketing, logistics? Maybe it's not applicable. So we tried to make this wheel that follows the supply chain, okay? So we have the supply chain, and what kind of systems and competencies you have, and then what kind of technologies are you dealing with. So you enter the wheel and you enter the technologies that you're dealing with. Now for now, it's kind of an open space. There are some you have to tick the boxes, but for the actual technologies, you're entering what it is that you do. And then the University of Almeria would go in there and they perform a certain sort of classification system. And this is a contribution too, because we don't really have a good classification system for agricultural technologies. So that was the idea behind it. We don't have as many technologies put in as we would like. Therefore, the classification is not going to be as bountiful as we had hoped, and we'll have to supplement it with other information. But we're really pushing people to put it in there so we get an accurate classification system. So once we have those classification systems, then the searching function and sort of the registering becomes much more useful. So if you put your information in there, particularly the technologies, the systems and competence and then technologies layers, people can find what you do based on your technologies. So they may not even know where you are in which country, but maybe they can find you based on the technology that they're looking for, so that it can solve their own problem within their own hub. All right. So the search function should be, we're hoping to have it up and running very, very soon. I think we had some promise by the end of the month. For now, if you register, you're still searchable, but you will be further searchable based on your systems competences and technologies in the very near future. Okay, so that is that, and I'm going to hand it over now, the online demonstration. So Manuel will enter the portal live and upload some information to the ATM. Okay, so I want to stop sharing.
Yes,
So,
I will make Manuel a presenter. Okay, now Manuel, you are now a presenter.
Okay, I hope you can see my screen and hear me.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
This is the main web page of the SmartAgriHub project, where in this web page shows information about competence centers in the upper menu. Here, a description of the main roles of competence centers and the ATN is included, as well as a link to a video explaining how to register certain competencies and the possibility of contacting Work Package 5 by email. Competence Center must first register at the innovation portal through the representative. This can be easily done by the portal option of the menu, just creating a profile. And once you are inside, in this menu appears possibilities to search for competence centers in the short term, filtering by sector and regional clusters. Also, more filters will be added in the future. The second possibility for searching is using the network option of the innovation portal, where the contents are also filtered by sector, regional cluster, or organization type. Also notice that here you have the possibility of adding an organization, in this case, competence centers, and it is shown in the map. In the user profile, if you enter the organizations option, you have access to your competence centers. And for instance, in the connections, you can give access, the responsible can give access to other people working in that competence center. And in the partnership part of the competence center, you can link, for instance, to a digital innovation hub or another organization. Okay, to access the Agricultural Technology Navigator, you have to use the tools section of the menu. And here is the Agricultural Technology Navigator. Once you enter, you can add system and competencies. We have followed with the standard definitions. We understand a system as a set of components interacting among them and with the environment to accomplish a task using different technologies. For instance, a spraying system, milking robot, or whatever. And a competence is knowledge and skills in designing system and selecting and using adequate technologies, often offered as a service. If you are at a system, you have to firstly to give a name, for instance, phytotrial, and some keywords describing the purpose of the system. This is basic also for searching purposes. You save the system, and here you can add the Agricultural Technology Navigator that has been defined to uniquely determine how a system or competence is defined and related to layers of the supply chain. This has been done this way to avoid a taxonomy tree expansion when classifying the technologies. For instance, if you are a competence centers, you can select competence centers. You can see how the animated wheel is moving. I'm going to select as input in the supply chain and equipment that I'm going to use, applicable for vegetables, and not applicable to distribution and consumer parts of the supply chain. And here this is also an important field where you have to enter system or technologies supporting this system or competence. For instance, PID control, deep learning, okay, and safe. Okay, we have now one Agricultural Technology Navigator. I can, for instance, duplicate it, because if I want to use this also for fruits, I can duplicate, select for fruits, and change the technologies. If, for instance, instead of deep learning, I use another, or PID control, I use on-off control, or a different technology. Okay, so you can register several Agricultural Technology Navigators, and then you can write here a short summary of the system, add audio visuals, and so on. I'm going to show one already entered, the phytorobot, for instance, where you can see a short summary, also very useful for searching purposes, audiovisual material related to this. This is a mobile robot for spraying purposes inside greenhouses, images, and even videos. Okay, and now here there are several characteristics. We have followed with the SmartAgriHubs project approach to help the potential users know how the system can be adapted to their necessities. Don't forget that if you are a competence center, you may have or must have the possibility of adapt what you have developed to the necessities of the users. You can also include here if the related projects within which you have developed the system or competence, and even publications and so on. And also it is important to the case services you offer as a competence center for this system. No? Here are the typical services provided by competence center. For instance, scaling, concept validation, prototyping, and even if you have patents or a commercial distributor. Okay, and a similar approach has been followed with for competencies, but with less fields. We know that this can be a time-consuming task, but as Cynthia has said, it is a way of showcase the system competencies of the competence centers involved in the SmartAgriHub projects, so that they can be contacted by different stakeholders. This fits the concept of a digital innovation hub as one-stop shop. Moreover, although this is transparent for competence centers, the way in which the information is included in the ATN helps also to perform a technology classification and analysis of those technologies more useful in the agricultural field using text mining approaches. And that is all from my side.
Manuel, thank you very, very much for that. Really comprehensive presentation as well, Cynthia. Thank you very, very much. If anybody has any pressing questions, please do put them into the chat and we'll address them at the end of the presentation as well. So next we want to move on to the Digital Innovation Hub Learning and Exchange Programme and the experiences from this first wave that they've had. So Caroline is a consultant in the TNO focusing on innovation, adoption and behaviour change. Her focus areas being digitisation of agriculture and sustainability, and she's part of Work Package 4 within SmartAgriHubs that revolves around capacity building for our SmartAgriHubs network. Caroline?
Thank you, Hazel. Indeed, I'm part of Work Package 4, which focuses on the capacity building of our digital innovation hubs. So really making them stronger and sustainable also after our project lifetime. For that reason, we have developed the Learning and Exchange program, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about today. Next slide, please. Okay. Yes. So first, a little bit more about the program, and then we already piloted the program. We had some first hubs experiencing it, from which we also ourselves learned quite some things already. And I'm going to share the next steps with you, because hopefully I can also get you into an action mode, or at least an interested mode to join our program. Yes. And next slide, please. So our LXP, so the Learning and Exchange Program, was actually just really came forth from needs of hubs themselves. Our project, SmartAgriHubs, is running for more than 2 years now. I think we're over half time. And in Work Package 4, we have been organizing a lot of webinars on topics useful for hubs, from farmer-centric innovation to the things you have to do when you establish a hub. But you see that webinars are rather one way. We had a lot of hubs joining, but we still couldn't get a lot of grip on how they were actually progressing in the capacity building. First of all, we have developed a maturity assessment for our hubs, really to enable hubs to look for themselves where they are on a scale to become a sustainable entity that is actually has a sustainable business for the longer term. But to support that sustainability, we thought, well, besides webinars, we really need to create a platform on which peer learning can take place amongst hubs themselves to really exchange on their practices. That is really what we heard back from a lot of hubs, like, hey, the webinars are good, but we really want to go into cases. I'm really working on robotics and arable, for example, here in Belgium, and I know that somewhere in Latvia they're doing the same. I want to connect with them and what they have tried and what worked and did not work. So that is really the philosophy behind this platform that we created. The next slide, please. Yes. So I assume most of you have seen emails around it to invite you to become our first batch of hubs joining. But if not, no worries, because we just started. This program will go on until the end of the project. But with the first group of hubs, we in the mid of April, we had 2 sessions in which we came together and exchanges took place on what are your key challenges for your hub right now. Also, what do you want to learn? What do you really want to evolve on? And we really hear topics coming back, such as marketing, which is quite important, and proposal writing, and raising funds and partnering in that sense. So that's something we heard back. Also, we talked about effects of the pandemic, and also, which was fun, we talked about if you could really take something that you see others doing, what would that be? And on the right, it's not visible to read, but that's fine. I just wanted to show you this is, of course, online. Years ago, we planned to do this physically, but this is online, and this is the way we do it, and it quite works. You know, it's a lot of dynamic going on, hubs pitching and others reflecting on those pitches. Next slide, please. So the program is set up as such that after a group of hubs with a similar profile gets to know each other during that session that you've just seen the previous slide about, they then define learning objectives to learn on as a team, and around that, modules will be built, and those will be initiated by the project. Harald is going, for instance, to support on that for raising funds. And here you see an overview of the first topics that we will create online modules on. And for your idea, we're going to support in the content, but the learning is going on peer-to-peer. So we have this nice interactive platform, which is a social learning platform that's been used for many other things already, in which people themselves can say, hey, did you check this video? Maybe this is a nice resource. I tried this today. And well, that's really the dynamic we are creating around these topics. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, so what did we get back from doing this first round mid-April? Well, the participants were happy, but they said we want more hubs, which is logical. So we're now setting up new groups. Also, we got some input on some templates we had that it was not working optimally. So we're doing these iterations to work on the templates we use. And I think the most important one is the last one, is that we started this program, all those mails that I think most of you have seen, was quite a mass approach saying, hey, we're starting this program, please join. And we did matchmaking on the hub profiles to match them a little bit, but still we saw that this mass approach didn't work optimally. So next slide, please. So we know that the idea of the program is working because the hubs who joined were really happy with it, but our next iteration is what I call going from a bulk approach to a boutique approach. So instead of sending out this email, say, hey, please join, and then kind of see what happens, we started to call hubs ourselves and say, hey, did you receive our email? Do you know what it is about? And first we heard some hubs who actually registered for our program but did not show up on the day, say, yeah, we didn't really know what it was, tell a little bit more about it. So we started explaining it, and every single hub we spoke to, which is I think about 12 hubs now in the past 2 weeks, they were all like, sign me up, this is great. So that's what I call the boutique. So we're really now talking to hubs themselves, saying what are kind of topics you want to exchange about, and then set up a doodle, set up a moment to do that first pitch exchange, as I explained, and then go into the learning. So that's what we're doing now, and actually we're already planning the 4th group of hubs to do that. And yeah, topics that we will exchange on are, like I said, marketing, partnering, finding other hubs, pan-European, to partner on for proposals. There's a group that's really gonna go into high-tech challenges, really working in robotics, and how do you do that with your, how do you involve your end users? But there's also other ones that are in large industrial areas, and there's a couple in this regional cluster that are going to join the group, that have enthusiastically signed up for the group on hubs that operate in competitive, dense environments. So that's also going to be a group. Yeah, so next slide, please. This is my final slide. So 3 groups in the making, is actually 4 by now. Specifically, I want to add a bit more hubs to the group that are highly specialized in data-related applications, AI, for instance, and looking for hubs that are more involved in shortening supply chains. So if you resonate with that, you say, hey, I would like to exchange on that. We are already setting up these groups, but we would like to make the groups bigger. So in that case, please reach out to me. You can also directly register on our platform. It's a separate platform from the innovation portal. That's simply because of functionality. Our learning platform is really very interactive, but on the innovation portal you can find our maturity assessment tool I talked about, and also earlier capacity building webinars I talked about. So yeah, I hope to be in touch on this with you. Thanks.
Great, Caroline. Thank you very, very much for your presentation. Very comprehensive presentation as well into the exchange program. And if anybody has any questions, now you might actually post them into it. We've already had a query just with regards to the link for the LXP site. So just to let you know, Fleming, that we'll be sending out the presentations and the link is there. Caroline, if you have the link, you might even just pop it into the chat so that he has it now straight away as well, which would be great. I suppose we do have 1 or 2 questions from the audience, but Caroline, maybe I just might ask you 1 or 2 questions first, if that's okay, just given the presentation that you've given. I'm just wondering, with regards to the actual groups of digital innovation hubs, are they grouped in a particular area? And maybe that's something I missed in the presentation. Are they grouped around skill sets? Are they grouped around size? And you said about larger groups now becoming boutique groups. And are those boutique groups, is it connected with a certain number of digital innovation hubs?
Yes, ideally about 6 digital innovation hubs. That's a number to really get new information, but also make sure that everyone gets a chance to really take time for the pitch and get input from the others. We base it now around main challenges, actually. So literally, hey, I'm in an environment where part of the network I'm servicing as a hub is sometimes a competitor in proposals and sometimes a partner. And how do you deal with that? And then we knew, like, hey, I believe that was a party in the Netherlands, and I know a party in Belgium that's struggling the same. And some of you in your cluster also is now joining that group. And then there's the now a group around small hubs that are actually operating with 1 or 2 persons working on those short supply chains. But they might as well be joined by bigger hubs, but if they relate to the topic of shortening supply chains, but have experiences on how to how they dealt with their challenges, that's fine. So it can be a little bit blended. Yeah.
And I suppose that's part of the exchange program as well, is that peer-to-peer learning, and the fact that you can come enter the market and you can learn from larger digital innovation hubs as well.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Cynthia, I was just wondering, I noticed in 1 or 2 in the presentation as well, just with regards to competency centres, and this is even from our own learning in the Walton Institute, and it was something that I was kind of even grappling with when I was doing the ATN tool, that like that I noticed that you have a research group that's registered, because we would have quite a number of research groups with all of these different unique competencies, and as a digital innovation hub I wasn't sure whether they were meant to register as a competency centre independent of us as a hub, and then connect them. Is that what we should be doing?
That's a very good question. And because competence centres can be so many different entities, clearly if you would actually put in a university or a big research centre and put in all of their technology, it would be crazy. So we're quite happy to have a research group, as long as it's sort of a well-defined, I mean, we don't want single researchers, but a research group. For example, Manuel's research group is registered as a competence centre because it's very much focused on a certain competences and technologies. That's fine. I mean, it's nice, you would say, okay, I'm this research group that's part of this research RTO or this university, but that's fine. What we're interested in is finding people who work on those.
Yes, the reason my question is I noticed some of our attendees are exactly like that. They're in universities and they do have quite large research groups.
That's fine.
Yeah, perfect. That's good. Great. And then I'm assuming then as well with the ATN tool, I know it's slightly separate to the ATN tool. Some of the questions that we did have before was some of the knowledge providers. That's not included on the ATN tool. So the knowledge providers such as, they were offering business services into agri-tech companies, but they're not categorized on the ATN tool at all. We're correct in saying that.
Yeah, the ATN tool is designed to basically provide for all kinds of entities, including governments, firms, etc. For now, on the portal, it's competence centers.
Okay.
There is, however, for example, there's the IOT Catalog, which is for tech companies, let's say, that already have solutions. But, it's possible that a certain company, which I mentioned before, that has a large research department might have ready for market, but also might be doing some research. So in that case, they're playing a role of a competence center. But this is not for, oh, I've got a technology that's already on the market and I'm ready to sell it.
Yes.
Those people should be in touch with their hubs, and their hubs, that's part of the sort of like the business networking, matchmaking, that kind of thing. But those entities should try to develop relationships with the digital innovation hubs.
Great, perfect. Thank you very, very much, Cynthia, for that. And we do have a question from Danny O'Brien. It's for you, Harald. Danny, I don't know if you're still on the line. He was wondering if you could speak about the definition of the innovation experiment and the types of projects that may be considered. And would a European-wide pitch program for startups qualify as an example? Danny,
thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think we need to differentiate here two things. One thing is this kind of European pitch program for startups. This I would classify as a kind of also services a digital innovation hub might offer. Like, let's say, a kind of digital innovation hub services to reach out to teams which would like to realize innovation experiments. At least this is my understanding here. Because an innovation experiment is really something to deploy some digital innovation in reality and validate that and, let's say, advance some product or improve some product and test that. While definitely, and we have examples also in previous projects what we did. This we launched last year. We launched a call for hackathons, organization of hackathons, and there were more or less similar initiatives for startups, for SMEs programs, where teams supported such organizations. And first they built up certain schemes, prepared those schemes, and then they were also on the one hand initiating innovation experiments, and also now with our open calls, we also consider both. First to set up, let's say, the approach, the tools for that, and then really to carry it out. And then, let's say, carrying it out, this we understand as an innovation experiment, really to realize this digital innovation agri-food. So, and making the program of supporting organizations like what just Caroline explained, or also Cynthia explained, these are also aspects digital innovation hubs and competence centers are offering. So we have those different roles in our definition, and the innovation experiment itself is then putting the pieces of the puzzle of organizations together to realize it then. Possibly also Cynthia, Caroline, if you have to add something on this, let's say, how you would classify then an innovation experiment, please also feel welcome to add something.
Harald, sorry if I can jump in here. We have 28 innovation experiments, existing ones, in our SmartAgriHubs project. So for anyone interested in and is not familiar yet with the project, they can link to the portal and visit the website and see the description and the progress of these 28 innovation experiments, as well as what is an innovation experiment there. Some of them
definitely.
Are just finishing,
Definitely.
and some of them are in the sort of middle of the process.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think all 28 innovation experiments which we started with in SmartAgriHubs are online, and now more and more also additional, let's say, initiatives also which were funded by the open calls will also be published then. Like most recently, there was a communication on the supported hackathons. There is now a kind of magazine public. So if you would like to, let's say, get access to this, Margot, where did you publish it on Twitter? This might also be interesting, but definitely thank you very much, Evie, for highlighting that. This, please also look at the website. Excellent.
Great, thank you. Another question again for you, Harald, for Shalom. We have an experimental farm in the north of Israel. This farm belongs to an association of farmers known as Kidbuds. Our research results are implemented by these farmers. We have a big experience in soil health and water health. We are not part of the SmartAgriHubs project. Could we join calls and how can we do it?
Well, I think that's a very complex question, and I think it's always a little bit difficult to answer such questions saying, yeah, this or that way. Definitely, I think such questions are good to put in the forum. There I can go on certain details, and definitely I don't know what is the background on the details. That's also sometimes for me the problem of answering something really how to say it very completely. So I think if you have such, let's say, kind of existing setting over there, and I was also in the webinar most recently done for the Prepare Open Call. We also had a kind of, let's say, decision support. What is the best call? And more or less the Prepare Open Call, which will end in 2 weeks, which will be finally closed in 2 weeks. That's more for preparing innovation experiments. Therefore, that's this. We are giving up to 20,000 euro to teams saying, yes, we want really to get this really clear how we are doing it, also preparing the Digital Innovation Hub strategy. So therefore, this might be something where you can say, if you are still a little bit unsure how to get grip on that. And on the other hand, there is the Expand Open Call, and there what we are really doing is to support and fund all the activities of digital innovation hubs, and this might be then an option. While please forgive me that on all the details I cannot really, let's say, reflect easily here, therefore it's a little bit complex, the question. Therefore I would really ask you, please go to the forum, put it there, the question, and then I'll try my very best to answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harold. We have another question from Les. Les, I'm not 100% sure, you might actually unmute if you wouldn't mind. It's about if hubs sign up to the portal, can members or other occupants, is there a contact for other hubs to discuss queries or to get feedback on results? I'm not 100% sure of your question. I see you've unmuted, Les. Welcome to the event.
Yeah, thank you very much. As an agri-tech hub in the Midlands in the UK, we have a number of projects going on concurrently, and in doing so, the point that Caroline made, saying that she was interested in robotics and cereals or veg, we're also in that arena. But rather than the Agri-Hub contact Caroline or her projects, is it feasible that the company working on the projects can contact them?
Yes, I missed. There was one moment that I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the last sentence?
Yeah. In summary, where we have when we have a consortium of companies working on a project, yeah, if one of them has a specialism in the robotics in the field and they have a query, and they via the portal contact other companies or other hubs regarding that query?
Yes, okay. Well, my first response to that would be we do have a forum also related to the innovation portal, in which really directly questions are asked and answered. That might be the most direct route for that. Indeed, if there is the motivation to really deeper dive, then our learning program could really be an option for that. Maybe to give a bit of a feel, as I explained, the learning program always starts with a morning part. So it's morning or afternoon, a couple of hours to really get to know each other. And after that, you deep dive on topics, which will take about 1 or 2 hours a week during a couple of weeks. But that is really more going into a process with each other. Yes, Cynthia.
Okay.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm also just wondering, does anybody else, Les, is that okay? Does that answer your question?
Cynthia, we cannot hear you.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
there's a delay in popping the button. Just to pop in on that, I might add. I mean, if I understood correctly, you do robotics, that's your specialty. So I assume you're a competence center, and that's one of your something that you would upload to the ATN. Okay, so that makes you searchable for the digital innovation hubs, right? It also, as Caroline mentioned, gets you, when you register, into the forums. So you join that ecosystem and you say, this is what we have to offer here. And it's basically a way of jumping into a system and finding out how you can best add value through the technologies and competencies that you have. You can also search to see who else is doing what you're doing, if they are, right? So there's several ways you can get at that. You can also then see who's doing the innovation experiments. You can contact the people through the forum, yeah.
And I would also like to add a very straightforward way just to get an idea who's also in this, let's say, community network. You can also look at the map in the portal, innovation portal, and via search criteria, you can find partners by competency, by type, by location, and so on. That's also, let's say, an opportunity on top of that.
Great,
And there is also the chat room for our regional cluster led for the Ireland and UK. So this is on the forum section, but it's for our network in the UK. So you can also visit that and be part of this informal group, let's say.
Thank you, Amy, for that. Is there any more? We're just actually running 1 minute over. Is there any more questions from the audience? If there are, please do unmute and speak up now.
Hazel, I do have one question for Harald from our network, from people that they couldn't actually attend this webinar today. So for you, Harald, question, for new organizations that would like to start offering services as digital innovation hubs, are they eligible to submit a proposal in prepare call? They just start to offering such services. So they just start to having the role of a digital innovation hub. Are they eligible to submit a proposal in the prepare call?
Yes, definitely. More or less what we are saying is that if you want to submit proposals as digital innovation hub, please register as a digital innovation hub in our innovation portal, that you will also, let's say, start to become member there. Then definitely please explain also your strategy of what you will build, but we did not say or put a certain maturity level of a digital innovation hub as an entry barrier here. Also organization which come meet us now and say, yeah, that's a great concept. I would like to join. I would like to offer my expertise. I was possibly already doing something in this direction, or even to improve it, build it up, validate, test it, then you're very welcome. So we also do not have, let's say, this external certification. Definitely, if you're going then also for the prepare, let's say an easy entry in that. Mm-hmm. And of course, you shall also explain why you want to do this in your proposal. I also remember proposals we received where they even did not use the word digital innovation hub, and you were asking yourself, so what are they proposing here? Then of course you are not at the right place. But of course, if you want to enter, if you want to offer services, you're very welcome to join us to learn and exchange your experience. And even what also Caroline said, that we have quite some tools, and we are also, let's say, adding tools for that we can have a better, even more experience exchange, learning exercises. And I think that's really an opportunity. And that's also true for the Restart and Expand open calls, that we do not want to put their high entry barrier, but we want to open the network, saying, yes, everybody who wants to enter, let's say, the offering as a digital innovation hub, you're very welcome.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other question from the audience or anyone else want to ask a question for Harald, Manuel, Cynthia, and Caroline? If not, I have two questions. Hazel, if we could use a bit of time to ask them. It's again from our network. For Caroline, the interaction with peer digital innovation hubs, we see, and I understood it's an important part of the learning experience. So the question was, how do you facilitate this process? I understood from the presentation that you might use this time the boutique process, but are there any steps that the digital innovation hubs need to follow? And what about time for the peer sessions and afterwards?
Yes. Yeah, it's all online. So we really have a dedicated online social learning platform for this. If you just let us know your interest, either by registration through the link or just directly through me, we'll get in touch and have a conversation on what you're really looking for. And then either you join one of the planned groups set up for beginning of June, or we organize a new group if it's around, maybe if it has a bit of a new angle, and we'll look for other hubs to join. Yeah, and the timing, well, it's always one getting to know each other session of about 3 hours that we planned somewhere that everyone can make it, and then it's during about a month the deep dives, which will take 1 or 2 hours a week, but that's really in your own time. I did not show the platform now, but that's really we will, for instance, put a YouTube video on it and ask a question. How would you deal with this? How and then in your own time you answer that. You answer to each other, and yeah, that's really what the platform is. Yeah, very good at in facilitating that process.
Thank you, Caroline. Very comprehensive answer. And I have one for Cynthia and Manuel. It's actually from our network as well. It's more a comment than a question. So we understood that to use or to complete this tool, we need to define our competencies and to define them in a structured way. So even this alone, this definition of our competencies, I think it would benefit the centers, the competence centers, to build their competencies and to build actually their offering. Can you elaborate a bit on this? To define and to build their offering better.
But I'm not sure what the question is. So we want them to.
More a comment and less a question, and it's more about how you define your competencies, and this tool contributes to define your knowledge, competencies, technology, systems, and in this way you improve your offering to the market, to the system, to the network.
Yeah. The competences and the systems, Manuel mentioned today what we mean by that, but I'm going to let him take that up. I agree with the comment, but Manuel, I'll let you expand on that if you like.
Yes, we think there of the competence like the expertise in doing something. Each competence center has expertise in different things, but you are very well in one of the things. For instance, the difference between having a robot that you can adapt to different tasks, that should be a system, and the competence is that you don't have that robot, but you have the knowledge and skills how to design a robot or how to co-create with the user of the robot and design it. That is, I think, how we understand the competency. So each competence center has to think about in which competencies or services is strong.
Yeah.
Including the system, so that this competence center can help not only users of its environment, but also users from other places.
Yeah, I mean, following up on that, by going through that process of I mean, as we talked before, it's very difficult for a university or even a research group perhaps put absolutely everything in there. But if they focus on what is the most value added and what is sort of the most innovative, what they do best, basically, it helps them. It helps them create who, you know, this is a vision of what we do best and what we can offer and who we are. Yeah, no, it's a process of defining yourself as a competence center rather than just as a research group.
Yeah, that was the comment actually from our side. Thank you, Cynthia, Manuel. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm conscious we're running out of time.
Yes, my apologies. My computer crashed and I've rebooted and rejoined, so I've missed part of that conversation. My apologies to everybody. But that's the beauty of working from home these days. We are just running 12 minutes over, so I'm hoping to close the meeting now or the event now. And should you have any questions or queries, as I said earlier on, all of our email addresses are on the PowerPoint presentations that we'll be sending on to you. Margot, would we be able to send them on tomorrow, do you think? Would that be a fair time frame? Yes, we'll have them sent to all of the attendees by tomorrow. So I'd like to thank today's presenters, Harald, Cynthia, Manuel and Caroline, and also to Kareem and Margot for all the support in putting this event together. Just a reminder for the attendees, if you've not already registered in the SmartAgriHubs portal, please do take the time to do this in order for the project to support the digital transformation of the agri sector. Thank you very, very much for joining today. And again, thank you very much to the presenters as well.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.